Good afternoon, Tayri Tamimim. We're going to start now a shir that I usually give in the yeshiva, intervals of 3-4 times, or 2-3 times, about Hagalas Kelim for Pesach. Includes also Hagalas Kelim for all year. Many Bocharim throughout the years go to Russia, Ukraine, and other places, and they need to kasher on their own to get ready for their study. This year, I guess a lot of you will have to help at home and make sure that the kashering at home is done in the right way. So we're going to give this shir. This shir is going to entail 2 parts. In the beginning, we're going to make Yisaidis, and I've actually done klolim, what we need to know for Hagalas Kelim. And the second shir will be more practical hints and practical ideas how to do it and how to get it done. So we can have many Yisaidis and many klolim taken from Yerideian, from Hilchas Pesach, from Siman Taf Nun Aleph, from the Alter Rebbe, Siman Taf Nun Beis, and the Alter Rebbe and Hilchas Pesach. So too from Yerideian Chelik Beis, which is Hilchas Hagalas Kelim, Achsharas Kelim, and so on. Let's start with the idea. The Torah tells us, a pasuk in Parshas Tzaf, the Torah says that if you cooked a carbon and a kela, the Torah says, because the keli absorbs in it the carbon, by the next day or 2 days, depending on which carbon, it becomes nicer. So the blia in it is treif. The Torah says, you have to wash it out, you have to cook it. It means boil water, and through the boiling of the water, you will take out the blia which is in it. Rashi actually learns it also in Klei Midyan, but the Klei Midyan, the Torah tells us that Kol davar asher yava be'esh taviru be'esh, or Kol davar asher yava b'mayim taviru b'mayim. So the Arishonim will learn pshat that this goes on libun and hagala. Anything which the blia went in directly through fire, the iser went in through fire, has to come out through fire. Taviru be'esh. And as the pasuk says in Parshas Matis, and Kol davar asher yava b'mayim taviru b'mayim, if it was only cooked in it, like we just said in Parshas Tzaf, if moirak v'shutav b'mayim, you could boil it in boiling water, and that will take out the blia. However, Rashi, I think, learns differently. Rashi learns that it goes about tvilas kelim. Eish is keilul both. Kol davar asher yava b'eish means anything which went through fire. It will depend. If it went directly to fire, do directly with fire. Kabbaloi, kach poltei. If it went in through water, you'll do it through boiling out through water. Kabbaloi, kach poltei. But it's both included in the word kol davar asher yava b'eish. And v'chol asher lo yava b'eish, taviru b'moyim, which means another kelim which were never used for heat, never absorbed any yisr. Now it's just a goyish keli, klei midyan. A goyish keli needs tvila. According to this shitta, which a Rav Paskim learns, tvilas kelim is with the raisa, because it's based on this pasuk. Taviru b'moyim, according to Rashi, means simply you have to toivel it. Al kaponim, we know, no matter from which pasuk we're learning it, that what? That anything that went in through fire, kabbalah kachpalte, has to come out through burning it out with fire. Anything that went in through heat of water could come out with water. The klal is as follows, that in order something should become aser, lachal adeyas, if it's a kli rishon, which is yat seiledes is a certain amount of heat, which we're not going to get into this in the details. There's some achreinim say it's 112 Fahrenheit, 115, 120, or 110, whatever it is. If it's an amount a little bit more than the body could tolerate, which is a little bit more than a very hot mikveh, which is around 110, then it's called yat seiledes. If it's a kli rishon, which means this keli was directly on the fire, and anything was put into this keli, even if the keli was off the fire, as long as the keli is still yat seiledes, then this keli is, if the iser went into this keli was beleya iser, which needs to have a hechsher. If it went in directly through fire without water in it, it will need to have libun. Libun means burning out directly through fire. If it went in through water, there was water in it at the time, then you have to do agala. Agala means boiling it out to take out the giul. Giul means the absorption that the keli will spit out. That's called hagala. So you'll have to boil it in water. It'll have to be, again, boiling water, as the Alter Rebbe says very clearly. It has to be a klidishin. It doesn't have to be on the fire. The Alter Rebbe it doesn't have to be on the fire, but it has to be boiling. Maila ababuas. Usually, if you take it off the fire, you can have it 3-4 seconds. Maila ababuas. After that, it will stop. So it has to be maila ababuas. If you remember that there was a whole discussion many years ago, and everybody knows that we're makbet, that cheese has to be 212. What does it mean, cheese 212? That means when they kasher the kelim and what they make the cheese, not all companies made it to the heat of 212, which is boiling, bubbling. Some companies were relying that a lower number is okay, because they claimed kabbaloi kachpalte, because when the iser went in, the machine has a thermostat, and it never goes up above 180 or above 190. So they claim that the kashering also could be through 190. However, the Alter Rebbe writes, in order to kasher something which went in through Yatze Ledes, it doesn't say through 212. Alter Rebbe says if it went in through Yatze Ledes, you have to kasher it, it has to be Maila Ababuis. That's how most people learn Pshat, and therefore that's called kashering, putting it in Hagala, putting it in, as we're going to talk the details more, kashering in boiling water. If you have something that went into a klisheni means you had water cooking in a pot, you poured the water into another keli, and then you put an iser into that keli. That means that keli was belay through a klisheni. Now, a klisheni, the many poskim will say, is not belay at all. B'di'evid, the Ramah is mekel, the Efsmerubah, all other poskim are mekel, that it's not belay in a klisheni, even though it's hot, even though it's yatzeledes. However, in Pesach it says clearly in Shech Narich we are makbet. On Pesach we're makbet even a kli shlishi, even a kli revi. We're makbet at any type of a heat. However, kabbaloi kachbaltoi. If something became osir from a kli sheni, you could kasher with the kli sheni. If it became osir through a kli shlishi, you could kasher with a kli shlishi. Then there is a halacha called Iru klirishon. Iru means when you pour over from one pot onto another or into a keli, while you're pouring, this water is still connected to a klirishon. It's called Iru sheloi nifsak hakiluach. And Iru, which the kiluach did not, the kiluach means the rum, was not interrupted. Such a kiluach is according to most Rishonim, big machlekes Rishonim, but according to most Rishonim, a lot of Rishonim, it is mevashil. For sure, not only it gives a belia, it gives a taste in it, but also it's mevashil. Agav Shabbos, a person would be chayev and bishul. However, because the bottom is cold, Iru is only mevashil kidei klippa, either mitzat, because the bottom is cold, or mitzad Iru itself is only mevashel kidei klippa, so it only asers the surface. If somebody could peel off the surface with a knife, then the rest is kosher. Iru sheloi nifsak hakiluach is a little lighter, it doesn't cook. Iru shenifsak hakiluach, when you pour, and it was a spritz, so when it gets to the surface, it's not connected anymore to the original pot. It's still asers kidei klippa. Maybe it doesn't cook. It's negei l'gaba basar b'chala, which needs to have bishul in order to be over midei raisa. Then it doesn't cook, but it's still maflet and mavliya. It's still asers. If there's an iser came down from a pot, even if it was nifsak hakiluach, the surface will still become aser kidei klippa. Now, such a thing, how can you kasher? Very simple. You could take a chainik and pour, a chainik is a tea kettle, and pour over kidei irui, which will do the same thing. Kabbaloi kachpolte, the same way it went in, it was beileya, so it will be poilet, it will be spitting out. It will give it out the same way it came in. And that's how you would kasher. So, in order to know more halachas of kashering, so we need to know also how things become asr in the first place. As we see, one of the rules is kiboloi, as it was absorbing, kachpolte, this is the way it comes out. So we need to know, did it go in through fire? Did it go in through water? Even if it went in through water, was it kli rishon, kli sheni, kli shlishi? Was it an irui? Was it nifsak hakilu achanat? So all these things are negeya to know before we get to kasher, to know how things became asr. So, for all practical purposes, anything which went into an oven and it was directly touched an oven, let's say a challah who was directly on a rack of an oven, that is al yedei eish. There was no mayim there. Any cake which was baked that way, not in a pan, but anything that touched directly, then this oven now needs libun gomer. That needs to be burned out from the chametz, because it didn't go in al mayim, it went in al yedei eish. Has to come out al yedei eish. So, as we're going to talk later, the pratim practically, how do we do that in an oven? So, let's go through many more such klolim, so we'll get familiar with many halachas. So, first of all, we're going to discuss something that the Rebbe discusses on Siman Tov Nun Beis. How does actually kashering work? You boil water in a pot. The water will take out the blia, meaning the absorption. It will get into the water. And while the water is boiling, it goes right back in. So what was the gain of the kashering? Came out, and it was right back in. How did the pot become treif in the first place? Because you boiled some isser in it, which means that's when the blia, the absorption, went into the keli. So why doesn't it happen now, the same thing? So the Alter Rebbe brings many shittas, which are not mainly lahalacha, just l'chumra. They're shittas or rishonim that we could figure out how long it takes to come out first, and you pour out the water right before it goes back in. None of us know how to figure that out. It's not angenim lahalacha lamaisa that's how kashering works. So the most practical way, the way it works, according to halacha, is if you have, first of all, shishim. That's the simple thing. You have a spoon that became aser. So you take a spoon and you put it into a big pot, which a big pot has shishim, 60 times the amount of that spoon. And b'meila, it takes it out. It becomes bottled b'shishim. Now that it goes back, it's heter. It was bottled. Yeah. Even though we know ein mevatel and issa l'kitchila was not allowed to be mevatel. In this case, I'm not interested in drinking the water. I'm not interested in drinking that. I'm not trying to be mevatel. I'm trying to take it out and throw it away. That's why the halacha is that right after we kasher, we pour the water out, and we even cool off the kelim that we kashered, so no absorption l'kitchila goes back. So we shouldn't show that we were trying to be mevatel l'isser. We're not trying to be mevatel. We're not trying to be nehana from that isser at all. That isser is thrown away. But the fact is that it does go back. So that's why we needed the shishim. So it became bottled in the process. So even if it goes back, nothing happened because it's already bottled. But that is only a small percentage of kashering. Why? Because 90% of the times, you kasher a big pot. You put it into another big, huge pot. You don't have shishim against that pot. Or you kasher a pot by itself, by putting in water in itself, as we're going to learn by the next practical shear, and you throw in a stone that should run over to cover the water all around. Again, you don't have shishim against the volume of the pot itself, which is the one that has the absorption of the isser. You don't have shishim. 90% of the time, you don't have shishim against that. So how do we kasher? So for this, we have to make a hakdama of something, of a new halacha, which is called noisen tam bar noisen tam. In short, it's called the Rashi Tevis nat bar nat. The halacha is as follows: that if somebody cooks flesh in a pot, kosher flesh, then he went and he cooked lakshin, or vegetables, or water in that pot, that tam of the flesh that went into the water or the lakshan is called tam sheni. First, the tam rishon was that the tam rishon went in from the flesh into the pot. From the pot it came in. Now the pot was washed out. It's clean, no flesh. Just the taste of the pot itself went into the water or the vegetables or the lakshan. That's called tam sheni. And the key word is it's tam sheni leheter. Was no isser over here. It was just flesh. Fleshig is kosher. It's just fleshig. Tam sheni leheter is a tam kolush. It's too weak to make basar b'chalav. It can't create a new isser anymore. If somebody cooked chazer in a pot, and then he cooked lakshan in it, and then tomorrow after the lakshan he cooked the lakshan with something else, and that with something else, no matter how many times it's going to go over and over, until there's shishim to be bittul, nothing will work. Because once you have isser is always asr, until it's bottled. As opposed to heter, which combined with milk, flesh combined with something else will turn into isser. There's such a concept as tam kolush. Even though it's not bottled yet, but it's shvach, it's weakened, can't turn into isser anymore. So tam sheni leheter, from the flesh to the pot, washed out the pot, cooked lakshan in it, tam sheni went into the lakshan. The tam rishon from the pot went into the lakshan, it's tam sheni, it's still heter. Now, if you're going to combine this with cheese, according to the Mechaber, you could combine it like a tchila with cheese. We don't pass like that. According to the Ramah, it's also to combine it with cheese. But b'di'evet, if somebody did, even according to the Ramah, it's kosher to eat. It's called nat ba'nat lehetera. Therefore, the way we kasher is based on this yesod. Anytime we have a pot which is osur, you cooked chazer in a pot, by mistake a milchig level went into a fleshige pot, it became basar b'chalav. The first thing you wait 24 hours. Now I will give you another rule before we can explain this halacha. The halacha is noisein tam livgam. Any taste which does not give a good taste, which doesn't enhance the other food, but actually makes it worse, does not aser min hatera. The way it works, according to most Rishonim, is the blia that comes out is bottled b'reif, but the taste, which usually the taste could aser even after reif, taste, there is no taste over here, so it's bottled. That's the nekuda. So when you cook in a pot, which is stayed for 24 hours without cooking in it, even though the pot had chazer treif in it, you're not allowed to cook in this pot until you kasher it. Chazal aser this pot le'olam vod until you will kasher. But if somebody forgot and he didn't kasher, by mistake he cooked in it, the halacha is that the food is 100% kosher if the pot was clean. Why? If you cooked after 24 hours, because it's called noisein tam livgam. Doesn't give a good taste anymore. Food that remains in the wall, not together with other food in water or something, just in the wall of a pot, after 24 hours it gets nivgam, it gets blemished, and it just gives out a bad taste. It's not bad enough that you shouldn't be able to drink the water, but it certainly doesn't enhance, it doesn't help give a better taste to the water. And that's not usher anymore because it's bottled. And therefore, noisein tam livgam is b'di'evet, the pot remains usher. Chazal were geyser not to use the pot because you might come to cook within the 24 hours. It's called eine ben yoyme otu ben yoyme. They were geyser, you should not use a pot, which is eine ben yoyme, which means it's not in the same day, it's more than 24 hours, more than a meisles. Otu, because of, maybe you'll come to use a pot which is within the ben yoyme, which is within the 24 hours. So that's why the pot you can never use until you kasher. But the food be'etzem that you did cook in it after 24 hours is kosher. So now that's the way we kasher. You have a pot which had chazer in it. You wait 24 hours. Now you're going to boil water in this pot. Pratam how to boil it, we'll talk the second shir. But the concept, you boil water in the pot. Now the water will get a taste from that chazer. But because it's after 24 hours, it's not called isur anymore. It's noisen tam livgam. Even though Chazal asked not to use this pot, you're not planning to eat this water. You're not going to drink this water. So all you did was you kashered it. You took out the blia. Now the blia that came out, even though now there is no shishim, this is not a small spoon in a big pot. There is no shishim. No. The water in the pot itself doesn't have shishim keneged the volume of the blias of the wall. It doesn't. Most of the times it doesn't. Nevertheless, the blias that came out are kosher because they're noisen tam livgam, they're blemished. Now, even though they're going to go back in now they're going back in. What is going back in? Heter. Yeah? So, even though noisen tam livgam, in the food is mutter, but in the pot it's aser. Because the chachamim were geyser, maybe you'll use it, maybe you'll use sometimes else a pot within 24 hours. So lechura, so here's two answers. Somebody's showing them, give an answer. What's your problem? Once the food is mutter, came out, the water is mutter because it's noisen tam livgam, nothing could aser. It can't go back in and aser. It's heter. Others Rishonim want to say, wait a second, the food you could eat. Chazal didn't make exer on the food. But if it'll go back into the pot, what's going to be the heter? Because it's noisen tam livgam. On the pot, Chazal were not matir noisen tam livgam. You have a breda to kasher. So how would the pot be kosher? So these Rishonim will say, yeah, but once it goes back in, what went in? Not banat leheteira. Noisen tam ba noisen tam leheteira. This water was not treif. This water was kosher. It got a blia. The first taste was chazer that went into the pot. Second taste after 24 hours came out. It's kosher. It came into the water. It's a kosher blia. It's bottled in the water. It's noisen tam livgam, and therefore second blia, second taste tam sheni is heter. Once tam sheni is heter, so even now that when it goes back into the pot, says the other Rishonim. So if that's the case, so what is going back? Tam sheni leheter. This can't aser anything. It's called nadva not lehetera. The same way when we had by flesh went into a pot, went into lokshen. It can't aser anymore if it mixed with the abbot with cheese. It's kosher because it's tam kolush. It's not strong to aser. So too now that this water was heter, because it was noisen tam livgam, even if it goes back into the pot, it's not like the original one. The original one was isur, so Chazal asked it even after 24 hours. This taste that it's going back is already heter, because it's not banat lehetera, and therefore that's how you kasher all the kelim. And therefore, the halacha is, me'ikar adin would have been the halacha as follows: that if you kasher a fleshig, a part of a pot that became fleshig, you me'ikar adin, you would not need to wait 24 hours. You have a fleshig, a part of a pot that became fleshig by mistake. You want to make it part of again. So what do? Boil water. The water that will become not barnat, because tam rishon was the flesh into the pot, heter. Tam sheni is the flesh into the water. It's still heter. It's fleshig, no iser, and that's not barnat. Now when you kasher, it goes back in. Not banat lehetera, goes back in. Can't make fleshing anymore. So the pot will now be part of. That's how it is meikar adin. Anytime you kasher something from not safe, you don't have to wait 24 hours. Meikar adin. If you kasher something which is isur, then it will go back in. If you don't have shishim to be bottled, then it will go back in. So therefore, you won't gain anything. It will become asur again. And therefore, you need to wait 24 hours. And therefore, now it's heter mitzad noisen tam livgam. Now we have the heter that it could go back in because it's not vanat lehetera. Because even if it goes back in, it's already heter because it was two tastes. And it's heter, it's noisen tam livgam. And then it goes back in. And that's how we kasher. So therefore, the minig is, the Alter Rebbe says in Simon Tafra Beis, the minig is by everything, even by everything, and not to get confused, we wait 24 hours. Something became asur, or you want to kasher something, became fleshig, so then you kasher it. You wait 24 hours after you used it. You wash it out with hot water. You could wash it out right away. Versteht sich, if it's treif, you have to wash it in a toilet sink or someplace you shouldn't make treif your sink. You wash it out thoroughly. It should be fully clean. And after that washing, if it was hot water, then you have to wait 24 hours from that washing, because that took out the bli and make it bad in. Or if you washed it with cold water with a lot of soap, scrubbed it off, you made sure that it's not hot, then you could wait from the original cooking 24 hours, and then you kasher. This is how regular and general kashering works. When you do libun, when you're going to burn something with fire, according to most places, burn away. They don't take out and put back in. They just burn away the chaymer which is inside, the tam, the taste. And therefore, over there, we don't have the shaila that it comes out and it goes back in and you need shishim. It doesn't work that way. So b'pashtus, when you do libun means with fire, one does not need to wait 24 hours before he kashers. Now, let's remember a very interesting halacha. Let's learn an interesting halacha. On Pesach, we know chametz is b'mashahu. B'mashahu means that one droplet could aser 10,000 gallons or more. Aden ketz. That's called b'mashahu. There's no such a thing as bittul when it comes to chametz b'Pesach. Chazal aser chametz b'Pesach, there is no bittul. And therefore, if you want to kasher on chalamoid, a keli which is chametzdik, it's not going to help you even if you have shishim, because it's going to come out, all the water will become also chametzdik, it'll go right back in. It's not going to help you, because chametz is b'mashu, and it will aser, it will go back in. So shishim won't help. So too, waiting 24 hours won't help, because we paskin l'kitchil except of a hefsed meruba, but in general we paskin that noisen tam l'vigam on Pesach doesn't work either. So all year round, if you have a countertop, you bought a house from a guy, and you didn't have a chance to kasher, or you kashered, you didn't know exactly if it was 100% kasher, or you had a formica top, and it's not sure whether one could kasher it, it hasn't enough plastic maybe, which we'll talk later, and one doesn't know for sure if you could kasher it or not. Nevertheless, by mistake, if a week later you put a hot piece of steak or a hot kugel on the counter, and the counter is versteht sich washed off and clean, it's kosher, because noisen tam livgam b'di'evet does not aser. And this is absolutely a b'di'evet, so it doesn't, l'kitchila, you have to kasher. So l'kitchila, if one has such a countertop, you should put always something, a Tupperware or any other plastic type of thing, should be mafsig between the counter. But if by mistake, if a pot by mistake you put it down, nothing happened. Nothing happened. On Pesach, it's not so pashut, because Pesach noisen tam livgam, we do aser. So Pesach shishim doesn't work, and Pesach noisen tam livgam doesn't work. And these are the two key ingredients of how we do Hagala. That we kasher, either we have shishim, or most times we don't have shishim, we make it noisen tam livgam, we wait 24 hours, and through this, the Isser doesn't aser anymore when it goes back. But on Pesach, so therefore, on Chalamoid Pesach, one cannot kasher with Hagala, which means chametz. If somebody had a pot that became milchik, a part of a pot that became milchik, and he wants to make it part of again, that's a different story. That's like all year round. It has nothing to do with chametz. Then you could kasher Chalamoid too. But anything which has a shaila of chametz, you cannot kasher on Pesach. However, Erev Pesach, till from Shoch HaMishin weiter, which chametz is aser. However, since chametz is not chorus yet, it's a lav, it's esaf tashbiso and a lav, but it's not iser chorus. These two stringencies don't apply yet. Noisen tam levgam is not aser, and it is bottle b'shishim, only in Erev Pesach. Once it's bottle, it remains bottle already for Pesach also, if it became bottle in such a way of kashering. And therefore, Erev Pesach, if one was late and he couldn't chaparayin, or in Russia somebody only got the hotel 12 o'clock ahead of Yontif, there's no other way how he could do it, and then he has to make sure that he knows for a fact that, the hotel, he had people there, lockdown, whatever, that they didn't use it for the last 24 hours. It's a nice tam lifgam. Now he could kasher, even though it's already the zman iser chametz, but it's still, the nois and tam lifgam is still a heter. Also, if you have a small keli, you could use the heter of shishim. Shishim also still works out of Pesach. However, if one needs to kasher through libun could be done even on Pesach and on Chalamoid as well. Because we said before, libun burns it away, it doesn't go back in, it's a different gather. But maybe libun could be done even on Pesach itself. So, while we're talking of this, I'll just jump to a different aspect. Libun, there are two types of libun. There's one thing which is called libun gamur, which has to be at sheteinu tzutzois nitzois hamenu. It has to be sparks flying off. I think what it means is when you heat up something very hot directly with fire, if you'll take a screwdriver and give it a scratch, you'll see sparks coming from it. In the Welt is angenommen, the people say that it becomes red hot. I don't think red hot. Of course, red hot is for sure already the gather of libun gomer. But I don't think in halacha it has to be mamish red hot. It has to be sparks coming off if you'll scratch it or something like that. Red hot, then you know for sure that's the fact. So most people accept like red hot, that's called libun gomer. Now, libun gomer is needed when something was beleya through fire direct. That's when you need libun gomer. An oven needs libun gomer. So therefore, putting on the oven on the highest number on broil, or 500 or 800 degrees, is not libun gomer. It does not make nitzutzois nitzos hamenu. So that doesn't count. You need to have a torch, or put coals on the oven itself, which will make it that heat that should make it nitzutzois nitzos hamenu. Then there is another libun which is called libun kal, a lighter libun. Libun kal, the Alter Rebbe brings back and forth. Seems like stiras and many terutzim that people answer when we need what. Sometimes it says that libun kal means that if you put it on a surface, the other side of that surface, you put fire on this side of the surface. If this is a surface, you put fire on this side, and then the other side becomes yatzeledes. In one place, the Alter Rebbe says the other side becomes kash nisraf olav. That if you put a kash meaning the lightest material that catches fire, becomes nisraf olav. Today I tried, you take a tissue paper, and you touch the other side with a tissue paper, make it thick, you shouldn't get burned your hand. But the tissue paper starts to become a drab brown, a mashahu brown, means it's starting to burn. But to get the other side yatzeledes, is very easy. If you put a torch on a sink, on a stainless steel sink, probably after 3-4 seconds or 5 seconds, the other side is already yatzeledes for sure. Okay, so that's called libun kal. When can one use libun kal? Libun kal could be used anytime you need hagola, not libun. When you need only hagola, you don't need libun, so libun kal is an alternative to hagola. It's messy to have water. In certain places you can't have a kilidishon and a sink, which is very difficult. How do you boil up water in a sink? Which we'll talk more practical when we get to how to kasher the sink. But the concept of kashering a sink, with the kilidishon, it's not easy. And therefore, what do? You could take a torch. We'll go through the practical issue as well. But once you go through, you torch all around every spot, it becomes yatzeledes the other side. You did a libun kal. That also burns away everything. So the Alter Rebbe's lashon is that also burns away. And therefore, it's kosher. This could be done on Chalamoid as well. So something which needs only hagola, but you can't do hagola on Pesach if it's for chametz, as mentioned before. you could do it through a libun. So through libun, one could do that. Coming back to many more klolim that we need to know before we go to kasher. Kashering has to be done dafka through water. Cannot be done through other mashke. The many Rishonim will explain that kasher that we discussed originally. Why are you not chayshish that the water, the Isser goes back in? Some Rishonim say it's because water has a completely different nature than other mashke. And water takes out, doesn't put back in. So for whatever reason, that's how we take it. Halacha lekitchila, we do not kasher with any other mashke. B'di'evet, the halacha is if you kasher with another mashke, b'di'evet it's kosher. But lekitchila we don't. It says the Alter Rebbe Shulchan Aruch, when you kasher many kelim in one big barrel, a lot of people bring kelim and you put in the same barrel, and then the water turns into, it becomes like tzir. It becomes like a thick juice, not like water anymore. The consistency becomes a completely different consistency. And then the Alter Rebbe says this is not kosher anymore to kasher lekitchila in that. Why? Because that's like another mashke. It's not like the consistency of regular water. So one has to change the water when that happens. Now let's go back to halachas of the difference between hagala and libun. We said we need libun anything which was done through Eish direct. There's another time when we need libun. Even though you cooked with water, you still need libun. The Torah says, we just learned, we said the pasuk, that if you cooked in a clean chayshes, the pasuk in Parshas Tzav says, you cook it out with water and you kasher it. And then it says, if you cooked it in the kli cheres, the Torah says you can't do anything, you have to break the keli. Which means the Torah tells you, the Torah is made, she'ene yetza midei dafya le'olam. From a kli cheres, you cannot take out through any kashering. However, Chazal say, me'iker adin, there is an eitzah, even by cheres. Burning it out with fire, libun will take out even from cheres. However, here we're going to introduce a new concept, which is going to be negaya across the board of all kashering. It's called hasik pnim. Hasik pnim means in order an isser should come out, it has to be burned out or cooked out from the very same place, from the very same side where the isser went in. Not from the same side where the fire was, from the same side where the isser went in. So for example, if I cooked in a pot, the fire was from underneath, but the isser, the chametz, was inside the pot. When it comes to kasher, I don't have to kasher the pot from the outside. Unless things spilled, it's another story. So it touched also the outside. But mainly where I need to kasher is the inside, because that's where the blia went in. That's where I have to boil the water to take the blia out. That's called hasik pnim. And the kasherin has to be done at the same side where the blia went in. The Alter Rebbe says this is soman atayra, that it doesn't come out only if you do it from the same side. It could aser maybe from the other side too. It could take some blias out and aser some other things. But kashering, to take out everything, has to be from the same side where you went in. And therefore, so Chazal said like this: if you would take a keli, a kli cheres, you would put fire underneath from the outside and kasher all around. It's not going to be kosher, because where did you cook the food in the kli cheres? Inside. Water doesn't work. The Torah said, you can't kasher kli cheres with agala. Fire from the outside won't work because it's not hasik pnim. It has to be the same side. The only thing which will work is put fire inside. However, Chazal made a takana gzeira. Since you never put fire inside a pot, you always put from the outside. People will be scared. Dilma boka. it might break. You're not used to put fire there. Therefore, Chazal answered, most kli cheres cannot be kasher, period. So again, water, the Torah says, doesn't work. Fire would have worked, but only inside, not from the outside. It has to be hasik pnim. And therefore, inside, usually we don't put fire. So Chazal made a gzeira that you'll be scared that it's going to crack. Therefore, Chazal asked, you can't kasher cheres. Chazal gave one eitzah. You could put it back into a kifshin, into a kiln, which over there it's 2,000 degrees. Which anybody who puts it in there is not. We're not choishes dilma paka because he gave up on this keli. That's a keli where you make likitchila. That's the keli. That's the oven where you likitchila make klecheres. It's so hot. That's how you melt the adama, the cheres that you put in there. That's how you put them together in the form. In a kiln. If one puts in, if one could find a kiln today and put a clay cheres, which is like porcelain is accepted today, it's called cheres. If you could put it in there, then it could be kasher. However, any clay cheres today which has a nice design, a little gold and silver on it, you'll put it into that, all the design will melt away and run off. It won't pay. Okay, so that's the din of clay cheres. That my ikir adin, it could have worked aish from the inside. Lepoel Chazal said you can't do it. However, an oven, you all went to a matzah oven. Matzah oven could be made out of cheres, lav dafke, could be made of cinder blocks and other things, but could be made out of cheres, depending what the types of cheres, which we'll discuss another time. So if it's made out of cheres, real clay, then it still could be kasher. Why? Because in an oven, where does the blia go in? Inside the oven, where the fire is all year. And therefore, we're not choishish if you're going to put fire into that oven, it's going to crack. This is where the fire always goes. A mele, an oven could be kasher with libun gomer. With a klecheres oven, you put fire, you could be kasher. Just a very interesting halacha. The Alter Rebbe says, this is in the Taf Samach, so Taf Nun Tes, someplace, not in Hilchis Hagola, not in Taf Nun Aleph, Taf Nun Beis. The Alter Rebbe says an interesting halacha of Kabbalah Kachpalte. Usually, how do you bake in an oven? You spread out gecholim. If you went to a matzah oven, you see the first in the morning, before Tana Rishon, they spread out gecholim all over the oven. It glows. Then they shot it away, they sweep it up, and that's when you bake on this. Says the Alter Rebbe, in order to kasher, it says Shulchan Aruch, in order to kasher an oven, it's not enough just a flame, just heat, fire. You need to put literal gecholim on top of the oven on this cheres. But an oven that you didn't put gecholim tak on it, just a regular oven that was made out of cheres and that had flames on the side and had a lot of heat, and you baked through heat, or even through bishul. Cheres needs libun even through bishul. You could kasher an oven because the heat was from the inside. Again, only an oven which the fire is inside. You could kasher with putting fire inside, and you could kasher through libun. So now we have a few klolim that we know already. We could kasher only a cheres, which the fire usually goes inside, that you could kasher through libun. Other cheres cannot be kasher even with libun. You could, anything which went in through fire, even metal, needs to have libun gamur. Real libun, netzutza is nitzen hemenu. Anything which went in through water, through heat of water, of boiled water, so that has to be kasher with the klirishin. If it's boiling water, has to be kasher with the klirishin, which is maila ababues, which brings up bubbles, which is 212. And most practical purposes, that's 212. Then brings up the bubbles, and that's how you kasher. What we mentioned is such a concept of libun kal, which is an alternative, even if you don't need libun, you just need hagala. But for practical purposes, you can't put it into a pot. So in that case, you could do libun kal, and that's good enough, a little bit of heat, which the other side becomes yatzeledes or kashnis of olive, and that does libun kal, and that is an alternative for kashering. That is an alternative for kashering. We also said that this could be used on